研究倫理の教育のために米国で開発された学習教材のザ・ラボ。大学を舞台にした架空の研究不正事件をバーチャルで体験でき、自分がもしその立場だったらどう行動するか、それぞれの場面で倫理的意思決定を選択することができます。その選択の結果によってその後のストーリー展開と結末が変わります。科学技術振興機構 JST では、このリアルなドラマ仕立ての教材を研究機関内で研究倫理教育を実施する際のツールとして活用してもらうため、日本語版をホームページ上で公開しています。今回より多くの皆様にご活用いただくため、内容の紹介を含め模擬講習の進め方の一例を紹介いたします。では、ザ・ラボによる模擬体験をしてみましょう。なお、これは米国で作成された教材ですので、日本とは制度ややり方がやや異なるところもありますが、ご了承ください。では、再生してみましょう。
It was a bad day. It started with just one reporter.
Excuse me, Mr. Ross?
Yes?
Paula Williams, Channel 8 News.
Okay.
Mr. Ross, researchers from another university are questioning some of the recent high-profile findings from one of your labs. Do you have any...
No, I'm sorry. I can't. You'll have to direct these questions to our general counsel.
But Mr. Ross...
Sorry, I have a meeting. A scientist from a competing lab decided to go public with suspicions that some very celebrated research from our university had been falsified.
Promising research that it was hoped might lead to breakthroughs in the treatment of diabetes might not be all it first appeared to be. Paula Williams has the story.
We don't hear much about the world of test tubes and lab rats until there's a major breakthrough with major public health implications. Add federal dollars and accusations of fraud to the equation, and you have a potentially explosive story.
I was very interested in this paper. My lab's been doing very similar work.
But it blew up pretty quickly.
And our preliminary assessment indicates there are grounds for moving forward and looking into all the research with which this individual is involved.
But
And we've decided that further investigation is required to determine whether research misconduct has occurred.
it turned out badly.
9 months after allegations of research misconduct, a young scientist here who seemed to have a bright future ahead of him has finally admitted to falsifying his research.
The investigation turned up multiple instances of research misconduct by this individual over the course of a couple of years. Along the way, there were people in the lab who had questions but didn't speak up. There were people who had responsibility for oversight who didn't properly exercise that responsibility. There were people who knew what was right and didn't do the right thing. And
Is it true the McCrary family is withdrawing their commitment to establish a $30 million research endowment for your university?
well, yes, as you know, they made that announcement today. It just turned into the proverbial perfect storm.
After findings of professional misconduct and with mounting pressure of widespread bad publicity and more unhappy donors threatening to pull their funding, the principal investigator from this troubled lab, who had been placed on probation, has finally been dismissed.
The PI was let go, his lab was shut down. Postdocs, grad students, lab techs, all scrambling to find a new place to continue their work. Many while dealing with the stigma that comes from a tainted lab. But you know what? It didn't really happen. Oh, I mean it did. But it didn't. Because with this program, unlike real life, you get to go back in time. You can become a grad student, a postdoc, a PI, or a research integrity officer. You get a chance to enter an alternate reality as any of these characters, walk in their shoes, experience their lives, and practice making the choices that will advance the integrity in research. This outcome can be avoided. It's up to you to figure out how.
さて、学長がマスコミに囲まれたり、大学が運営資金を断たれたり、 大変なことになりました。ではどうすればそのようなことにならないで済むのか、皆さんでチャレンジしてみましょう。ここでは体験するキャラクターを選びます。大学の研究構成責任者のベス、研究主催者 PI のアーロン先生、ポスドクのハーディック、そして大学院生のキムが選べます。今回は PI のアーロン先生で進めてみましょう。
This is you, Dr. Aaron Hutchins. You're a full professor in the physiology department, and this is your lab. Many exciting discoveries have been made by your research team recently. And with the multiple publications come speaking engagements and conference requests. That's on top of your teaching and committee responsibilities. And grant writing. When you add your wife and kids, it's obvious that your life is hectic. But it's all worth the price to live out your dreams.
あなたは尊敬される研究者です。PI として毎日忙しいながらも素晴らしい人生を過ごしています。では次へ進んでみましょう。
Aaron Hutchins.
Hey, buddy. Carl Glass here. How are you?
Hey, Carl. How are you?
Carl Glass. You were grad students together. Over the years, he's made it a point to keep in touch with you as your career and your notoriety has grown.
So, I'm at Versar University now, down in Philadelphia, Mississippi.
Philadelphia, Mississippi.
That's right, buddy.
Well, congratulations.
Thanks. And I am organizing my first conference down here.
Congratulations again.
Thanks again. But I'm not calling just to share. I want to invite you to come and present at my meeting.
Oh, I don't know, Carl.
Having someone of your importance would be a real honor.
You flatter me, Carl.
I flatter, but I'm telling the truth.
I'm just so swamped right now.
Come on, Aaron. Don't blow us off.
I'm not blowing you off.
Just because this is a new small meeting, that doesn't mean that important people aren't going to be there.
That's a good question. Who is going to be there?
I guess you have to come to find out.
Carl.
In all honesty, we're still creating our invite list, but I wanted to make sure that you were one of the first people I reached out to. Can't forget my fellow alum.
Right.
Listen, before you write us off as insignificant and puny, just remember what happened at the Raleigh-Durham conference.
What are the dates?
Had a feeling that'd make you think twice.
I'm not making any commitments. I gotta check my calendar and even see if I'm free. Office hours are from 2 to 4. Come back in a little while.
But sir, I've traveled a great distance.
Ali, I didn't know it was you. Come on in.
How are you, Aaron?
This is Dr. Ali Hamid. He was your mentor and PI when you were a postdoc. You two are only an hour away from each other these days and have lunch once a month.
Oh, hello, Dr. Hamid. Aaron, I'm going to run out and grab some coffee. You want anything?
No, I'm fine. Wish I could say the same about you. How long you been here?
Since 10 a.m. yesterday.
Are all your postdocs running on fumes like this one? Never known a race car to win the Daytona 500 on E.
The Daytona 500. What do you know about NASCAR, old man?
Greg does look overworked. But then again, being overworked comes along with being a postdoc. Dr. Hamid is looking for you to intervene here, but you can't baby your postdocs.
疲れた表情でポスドクのグレッグがオフィスに来ました。あなたならどうしますか？今日は家へ帰らせましょう。
Greg, why don't you take off for the day? And don't come back till tomorrow afternoon.
But I'm in the middle of transferring my job.
I insist. Go. Go.
あなたはグレッグが体調を整えられるようにしました。研究者の健康への配慮も大切ですね。
That's one brilliant young scientist.
Yeah, but he could use a good day or two of hibernation. Speaking of which, when was the last time you slept?
Look, somebody's got to keep the doors open around here. I'm working on a proposal right now. I mean, if I knew it was going to be like this, I would have foregone the PhD in biology, and I would have went to school for administration.
It comes with the territory, my friend.
I know, but every time I'm behind that screen, begging, my creative muscles, they're dying from atrophy.
Oh, not the Picasso rant.
Science is a creative endeavor. I mean, at one point I used to consider myself an artist of sorts.
I know. Thought I had to talk you out of applying for the Endowment for the Arts funds.
Very funny. And I don't mean to complain.
Oh,
but
you complain.
well, it just gets to me.
I know. Are you done, Pablo?
Yes.
Good, because I'm hungry.
Their work got set back a whole 4 months.
All because some stupid lab tech didn't want to miss the high tide every day.
You think they'd have caught her sooner?
Well, the results have been consistent for a long time. She was just basically making up numbers that were similar to those that they'd already gotten.
Is surfing that great in Santa Cruz that you can't wait around a few extra hours to get the real results?
Surfing is pretty amazing out there.
What if that happened to you?
God, I don't know what I'd do.
Because that would be the worst thing that could ever happen to me. But how can you ever really prevent it?
You have to make time. That's what I try to do.
Well, that's how it was with us 15 years ago, but times have changed.
I still try to do that.
How? With everything else you have to do to keep a lab going.
It's hard. More time in the lab means that fewer grant proposals are written, and there are fewer meetings that you can attend, but I figure it's worth it. I might have stopped that lab tech in California.
You have a point.
Yeah, plus hanging out in the lab a bit more might feed that inner artist in all of us scientists. I knew they'd get a response out of you, Picasso.
Coffee?
Desserts? I'll take a look at the dessert menu.
Thank you.
Dr. Hamid might have some good points, but are they actually realistic?
BI はさまざまな責任を果たさなければなりません。メンバーと関わり合うことは、さまざまな問題の発生を防ぐことにつながります。
The next day, you and Greg go over some new experiment results.
The expression of these proteins on these tissue cultures, well, the difference between the control and the experimental group is so dramatic. It's amazing.
Excuse me, Aaron. I hope I'm not disturbing you guys.
Hi, Kim.
Kim is one of your grad students.
I just wanted to see if this was a good time before you said to check back with you later, so...
Right.
It's just the experiment I'm doing, I'm having a lot of problems with it. If you could just come and see what I'm doing wrong.
You're in the middle of going over what might be one of your lab's bigger discoveries, and although you've been putting off meeting with Kim for a while, whatever she's working on is a low priority. Do you really want to stop to talk to her now? Maybe you can just direct her to call your other postdoc, Hardik.
大学院生のキムが実験の相談に来ました。あなたならどうしますか？ポスドクの研究成果の報告を聞くことも重要ですが、ここではキムの話を聞いてみましょ
う。Greg, I promised to meet with Kim.
That's fine. We can finish this up later.
Of course.
Later, you work with Kim. This reminds you of how mentors like Dr. Hamid used to take time out with you. You give her pointers along the way, but you also get to see her raw data and you get a clear idea of her progress and where she's going with her experiments.
PI としてスタッフにできるだけ平等かつ公平に接することが大切です。しかし、これは難しいことです。研究室全体に関わりを持つことで、研究室の実情を正確に把握することができます。
You're still up? It's 3.
I guess I lost track of the time.
Yeah. Come to bed.
Give me about 40 more minutes.
Where's this meeting again?
It is at Versailles University in Philadelphia.
There's a Versailles University in Philly?
In Philadelphia, Mississippi.
Whoa. Since when did they start holding those big conferences down there?
Never. This meeting isn't that big. They just reached out to me.
You know, you don't have to accept every meeting invitation. Pretty soon, folks are going to start thinking you're cheap and easy.
Well, if I'm not cheap and easy, someone else will be.
And?
And they'll be seen and not me.
We're talking about Versailles University here.
Right. Last year, there was a conference in the Raleigh-Durham area. It was super small, more of a weekend of luncheons than a conference. There was a biochemistry researcher presenting. And through just dumb luck and unbeknownst to him, the folks from the McDouglas Foundation were there too. And when he sent in his proposal to the McDouglas Foundation a little later, they remembered him from his presentation and how impressed they were. So his application got pushed through, past equally qualified applicants that the McDouglas Foundation didn't see. So the moral is...
Yeah, some guys have all the luck.
No. You don't know who's going to be at these things, so you have to pack them in.
Yeah, at the detriment of your family and your wife, especially your wife.
Honey.
Don't you think you deserve a rest now? At every stop along the way, you have killed yourself to get somewhere else. As a graduate student, it was to be a postdoc. As a postdoc, it was to get your own lab. As a PI, it was to establish yourself in the field. Well, you have done that now.
I can't rest now, not yet. Have a long way to go to leave my mark.
So how do you measure it? With more prestigious grants, with better university appointments, with awards?
Yes.
Yes, what?
Yes to all those things.
What about Dr. Hamid?
Ali.
Yeah, his career isn't flashy, but he seems to be revered and influential in his own way.
Ali's special. He's a great man. And plus, all the talented scientists that come out of his lab, over the years, his lab has become, I don't know, Starfleet Academy or something. He doesn't need the awards. He doesn't need the fancy appointments now. His name is his legacy. You should have seen Ali earlier in his career. He traveled a lot more than he does now. There's no escaping it. You have to spend time establishing yourself. And that's true for everyone, even someone like Ali.
Okay, but after a while he figured out he didn't have to chase meeting invitations.
That's true.
And he also didn't let his wife sleep alone. I'm going back to bed. Come up soon.
All right, honey.
PI の評価は論文の数や受賞歴だけでなく、研究室の管理や学生などの指導の面からもなされるべきです。
The next day, it's Steve, a grad student, who interrupts you.
Excuse me, Aaron.
Doesn't he see how busy you are?
Can I speak with you? It's really important.
You look at Steve, and he looks troubled, but this isn't the time.
今度は大学院生のスティーブが相談に来ました。あなたならどうしますか？平等かつ公平に接することが大切です。スティーブの話も聞くことにしましょう。
So you decide to take time out for Steve.
Sure, let's go to my office.
But Aaron, I mean...
I'll be back in a moment. Just keep going.
I don't know how to say this, so I'm just gonna come out with it. I'm not sure if I can stick it out here. All this jumping through hoops just to get published. And the other day, a friend of mine called about a sales rep job at a drug company. She was talking big money.
Wait, whoa, hold on, slow down. So let me get this straight. You're thinking about leaving school?
Not leaving so much as taking a break.
Breaks are dangerous, trust me. Breaks lead to time off. Time off leads to indefinite hiatuses. Indefinite hiatuses lead to you at 50 blabbing about how you used to study science to some blubbering, bald bartender named Barney.
Wow.
You know, I thought about quitting when I was in grad school too, for about a semester.
Yeah?
Yeah, when I was in school, everything seemed like a moving target that I couldn't quite get a grip on. The failed experiments, the elusive publications, made me jaded and disillusioned.
I know what you mean. What got you out of your funk?
Well, I went back to what made me fall in love with science, I guess. For me, it was the excitement. Setting out to answer a question and then finding the answers to it, whether expected or not, has always been thrilling for me.
For me, it's the challenge.
Tapping back into that original something, that is what will get you out of your funk.
Okay.
And then you find yourself channeling Dr. Hamid for a brief moment.
I find that if you focus on the right things, everything else will fall into place eventually. The publications, the degree.
The money.
Even the money. If you do what makes you happy and you give back to the world, the universe kind of takes care of you.
Financially.
You'll be taken care of. Maybe not like you're starting for the Yankees, but you'll be taken care of.
Okay.
And for what it's worth, I just wanted to say that if you left, I would miss you in my lab. You're a smart, dedicated scientist. The field needs young people like you.
Your words sink in. And eventually, Steve decides to stay and continues to do good work.
PI の影響力は大学院生やポスドクにとって人生や進路の上でとても大きいものです。悩みを聞くだけでも大きな助けになることがあります。
Excuse me, Aaron. Do you have a second to talk about something?
I was heading out soon, but I guess I have a moment.
Among other things, engaging the people in your lab can build their trust for you.
I have something important I need to talk with you about.
So, what are you saying?
I don't really know what I'm saying. I just know that what Greg has in this paper is different than what I remember from my rotation project.
Kim's talking about a paper that was recently published. Greg was the first author, and she was listed as a co-author because some of her experiments were referenced.
We're talking about experiments you did 3 years ago?
Yes, and the westerns I did aren't the same as the ones here. They seem changed.
What do you mean, changed?
I mean, a mix-up seems to have occurred. That's probably what it is, just a careless mistake.
Greg doesn't make careless mistakes. You don't have as many publications as Greg has by making careless mistakes.
Well, something happened because this is different. Not necessarily because of something Greg did. Maybe somebody else came along and darkened the blots. A botched attempt at beautification, and then Greg came along and made an honest mistake. A flawed analysis.
That sounds absolutely ridiculous. What are you really saying? Are you accusing Greg of something? Because I can assure you, Greg would never do anything the least bit questionable. His results have fit in, always. He doesn't need to cut corners.
No, I'm not saying he did. Look, I just thought I could come to you with my concerns.
You know, most grad students don't get publications like this.
I know.
You should feel grateful that Greg included you.
I do. I want you to take a look at something. These are the notes I recorded after my experiment was done during my rotation project.
You don't have the original film or the backup digital copies?
No, I probably threw them out when I was getting rid of some old stuff, but please look.
She's right. Her notes are clearly different than the published results. But then again, these are just scribbles in a notebook.
Kim, what am I supposed to do with this?
I don't know. Well, have you seen the raw data?
I've seen some of it, most of it.
The truth is, you've seen very little of the raw data. Greg's just shown you what he felt was important.
Greg's results always fit in. Always.
Well, this is incorrect.
So you've convinced yourself?
And if this is wrong, I'm concerned about what else is wrong in this paper. Look, I'm not saying Greg did anything improper. I mean, that doesn't even seem like Greg, but I think what I'm talking about is worth checking out.
Kim is just a grad student, and she's still gaining an acumen for science. You wonder how seriously you should take her. Should you entertain her any further? Your wife expected you home 30 minutes ago.
大学院生のキムがグレッグの書いた論文におかしなところがあると言ってきました。さて、あなたならどうしますか？ここでキムがしっかりと生データを保管していたら、あるいは先生が日頃から保管するように指導していたらどうでしょうか。おそらくもっとはっきりしたことが確認できたのではないでしょうか。今回は中断したらどうなるか見てみましょう。
So you decide to cut her off.
Kim, I want you to know that your concerns have been heard, and I'm taking them seriously. I gotta go home now, but I'll follow up on this.
But you never do follow up. In fact, you do your best to try and forget about it. You just hope Kim forgets about it too. Days later, after a weekly meeting.
Hello.
Dr. Hutchins, Beth Ridgely.
Hi, Beth.
Dr. Beth Ridgely is the University Research Integrity Officer. Immediately your antenna go up. This can't be good.
Do you have time to meet with me soon?
How soon?
Like 2 minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Great, because I am just about at your building.
Beth wants to talk to you about an allegation that she's looking into. She explains that someone from your lab has come to her about Greg's recently published Nature article. This complainant suspects that some of the published results don't match the actual raw data.
Who's the complainant?
That doesn't matter. What matters now is that we figure out what's going on here.
You're totally blindsided by this. You wonder who from your lab made these accusations, and why didn't they come to you first? But maybe you know the answer to your own question. You don't engage your lab like you need to.
大学院生やポスドクをサポートすることで、お互いの信頼関係が生まれてきます。研究室内の風通しを良くすることで、そこに潜んでいる問題が見えてくるかもしれません。
Before I go any further, this is all your postdoc's data, right?
Correct, it's all his.
But you've seen all the raw data cited in the paper.
I've seen some of it. Most of it.
Oh. Well, have you seen the data for this figure? Or this particular figure?
I'm not sure if I can recall or not.
Beth continues her assessment by talking to Greg. She's not satisfied with what she hears and sees and brings in her team to sequester data. This hits you in a horrible way.
Sequestering data protects everybody involved. Greg, you, the lab, hopefully we'll look at everything and it'll be clear that nothing inappropriate has happened.
You know that she's trying to make you feel better and that she genuinely hopes that no evidence of misconduct is found. But all you can think about is what will happen when all the dust settles. Weeks later, the Vice President for Research and Graduate Studies wants a word with you.
So Greg Anderson finally confessed to falsifying data on his paper. All I can say, Aaron, is you dropped the ball here, royally. You know, I just got off the phone with the Board of Governors. They gave me an earful. They want heads to roll, and they want to start with yours.
John, I am so sorry about this.
Are you? Do you have any idea how much this is going to hurt this university?
Well, yeah, I think I understand.
No, you don't. You can't possibly understand. Because you don't have to receive calls from donors threatening to discontinue their funding.
You knew it was bad, but not that bad.
PI として自分の研究室をしっかりと見ていなかったことや、生データを見ていなかったことなどの間違いを犯してしまいました。
I'm going to have to come down hard on you. This goes beyond research misconduct. This crosses over to professional misconduct on your part.
What?
You have been irresponsible here. And that is why I'm having the Professional Standards Committee look into your conduct. And if they come back and recommend probation for you, I'm going to place you on probation.
Sounds like you got your butt handed to you.
I deserved everything I got. I was an out-of-touch idiot. If I was John, I would have fired myself.
Well, consider yourself lucky.
Lucky? Misconduct occurred in my lab. What's worse than that?
It could have gone undiscovered until after other scientists had done their experiments, building on the faulty data, wasting years of their time in the process.
No, that's worse.
Or what if a pharmaceutical company got a hold of the data, incorporated it into the creation of their medicines, and put public health at risk?
Even more awful. I get your point.
Yeah. Well, also will be in vain if you don't view this as a wake-up call.
A wake-up call.
Whether you deserve it or not, you have a second chance here. But this time around, you have a real opportunity to engage your lab, be more professional, and be a real mentor.
恥ずべき状態となり、 大変に厳しい状況になってしまいました。現実なら悔やんでも悔やみきれませんね。しかしここでは時間を巻き戻すことができますので、やり直してみましょう。さあ、やり直しです。今回はキムの話をじっくり聞くことにしましょう。
So you decide to humor her. Initially, you're dubious, but as Kim continues to talk, you at least acknowledge to yourself that this is a matter worth looking into. You still haven't bought into Kim's concerns completely, but you realize this is a situation that warrants some kind of action from you. On the way home, you consider what to do. One obvious choice is to contact the University Research Integrity Officer. Her job is to look into these sorts of things. But if you turn it over to the Rio and even a suspicion of misconduct is revealed, it'd be an embarrassment to your lab. Also, you'd surely be forced to retract Greg's Nature article. On second thought, maybe you should just handle this situation yourself.
さて、このような場合、あなたならどうしますか？今回は自分で対応したらどうなるか試してみましょう。
So you decide to handle the situation yourself, and the first thing you do is meet with Greg. You hope he can clear everything up. But when you lay out your concerns about the Nature article, Greg talks in circles. And then when you show him Kim's notebook, he's evasive and defensive. It all gives you a bad vibe. After a while, you've heard enough and decide to cut to the chase.
I need to see the raw data.
But I've already shown you everything.
All of it! I need to see all of the raw data, not just what you've shown me.
He shows you what he has, which is the majority of the research cited in the paper, but some things are missing.
Just don't have it here, but they're somewhere. Just have to find it. Aaron, you know I'm not the most organized person in the world. But just because I can't find it right now doesn't mean I did anything wrong.
He's right. You know how sloppy Greg can be. You also know that disorganization isn't necessarily the same as cutting corners.
Let's see the computer files you have.
In the end, you don't find any clear evidence of any wrongdoing. However, you don't walk away feeling confident about Greg's research either.
さて、あなたならどうしますか？今回は証拠も見つからなかったので、そのままにしたらどうなるか試してみましょ
う。You don't have any clear evidence that Greg cut corners, but he's lost your confidence. Greg's contract is up soon after that, and because you still have misgivings, you don't re-up him. A few years later, you're in Indiana for a conference, and you run into Carl Glass in a hotel lobby.
Just wanted to say I'm sorry to hear about the terrible news.
Terrible news?
About Greg Anderson. He was one of your postdocs, right?
Of course.
You haven't heard. Everybody was talking about it at the meeting yesterday. Greg was busted for falsifying data.
As it turns out, Greg was exposed for other misconduct when he eventually became a PI of his own lab. Greg's dishonesty will not only embarrass his university, but you're afraid the ripple could eventually affect you. Maybe this could have all been prevented. If you just reported Greg when you had your suspicions, maybe his dishonesty could have been nipped in the bud.
やはり専門家である研究構成責任者に話すべきでした。捏造、改ざん、盗用が起きたと思うときは、すぐに大学の研究構成責任者に報告しなければなりません。調査や処分措置は PI の仕事ではありません。恥をかくのではといった恐れが原因で、その時は良かったのですが、結局厳しい状況になってしまいました。しかし、ここでは時間を巻き戻すことができます。もう一回やり直してみましょう。 さあ、今度は最初から研究構成責任者に相談してみましょう。
So you decide to go directly to the University Rio. The potential gravity of the situation resonates with her immediately. She tells you that she'll need to interview Kim. In addition, she may have to sequester data from your lab. You're wary of the idea of her disrupting your lab, but you understand that the possibility of gathering evidence is part of the process. Good job. You handled a serious situation appropriately.
やはり決まった手順で専門部署の担当者に相談することは賢明ですね。不正の調査については研究構成責任者に委ねましょう。
After you meet with Beth, she concludes that there are grounds to move forward, and she comes to your lab to talk to Greg. She's not satisfied with what she hears and sees and brings in her team to sequester data. Sometime later, Beth informs you that Greg confessed to cutting corners in his research. Although misconduct was one of your worst nightmares as a PI, you made a good decision so that this incident didn't damage your lab more than it had to.
You seem in good spirits. Not exhausted or drained?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think I'm starting to hit a groove. I mean, life's still crazy. I'm still writing grants and everything, but I feel more like a scientist.
Congratulations, Picasso.
You know, I think it's that I'm spending more time in the lab, really mentoring my grad students and my postdocs. It's actually more rewarding than I remember.
Yeah. You know, the old masters, they all had proteges. It was part of the gig.
Yeah, but did these proteges ever take somebody else's work, change it, and pass it off as a masterpiece?
Sometimes, I guess, but that's not always a mentor's fault. Sometimes people just do stupid things. It's how you handle it when you see it, and just the fact that you see it. You did just fine, Picasso.
Thanks.
And it still means a lot to hear that from your old friend and mentor.
Of course, you still have a long way to go before you catch up with me.
Right.
Good job.
不正の疑惑に適切に対応して問題がさらに広がらないようにできました。ステータスも尊敬され崇拝される存在となりました。しかしもしもグレッグに対する個人的な信頼関係とは切り離して論文を作成する最初からあるべき研究者の姿としてデータの妥当性をちゃんと確認していたらどうだったでしょうか。おそらくこのような問題は未然に防げたかもしれません。さて、今回はおめでとうございますということですが、現実の世界では当然いろいろな状況も異なります。日本の場合であれば、告発の受付や調査は各大学などの規則に従うことになります。ですから、この教材のうまくいった選択を丸覚えしてもあまり意味はありません。大切なことは皆さんがこの教材を利用してご自分の状況に当てはめていろいろな選択肢を考えることです。また倫理的ジレンマが生じたドラマの中のシーンについて何人かで集まりどう考えるかについてディスカッションすることも有効です。複数の価値が対立した時の振る舞いを考える訓練ツールとしてぜひこのザ・ラボをご活用ください。皆さんが責任ある研究活動を行い素晴らしい研究成果を上げられることの助けになればと思います。なお4人のすべての選択肢を試すとたっぷり6時間以上お楽しみいただけます。少しずつでも結構ですのでぜひチャレンジしてみてください。